Well, by the sound of that music, you can tell what time it is. It's Faith and Sport time once again on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network, 1270 AM Charlotte. Also streaming at carolinacatholicradio.org and on the Carolina Catholic Radio app. We're also broadcasting across Radio Maria, so good to have all of our Radio Maria fans tuned in for a brand new edition of Faith and Sport today. I'm Chris, the producer of the show, and here he is once again coming to you each week to bring you Faith and Sport, your host, Dr. John Acquaviva.
Folks, thank you for joining us on the show today. However, wherever you are joining us, I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. I teach exercise science just down the road here at Wingate University, just outside of Charlotte. And then once a week I come down here, I jump into a phone booth, I put on a mask, a cape, and it says F and S on it. It stands for Faith and Sport, and we come down here and do the show. Here's what we're going to do today. We're going to discuss all things sports, including our hit and miss with Ed Billick. He's in the studio today. We're going to do weekend headlines. Our guest today for the second time, part 2, with Megan Harrington. She's a documentary producer and writer, and she's here to talk about one of her latest projects, Pray, the Story of Patrick Peyton. We're going to do the quick Q&A with Dr. A, and if we manage this time right, we're going to do PGA Golfer of the Week, a new segment that I talked about last week, but we didn't get to. Maybe we'll get to it today. Ed Billick's in the studio. Brother, how you doing?
Wonderful, John, Chris, guys. Glad to be back with you. You know, I was just thinking, this is a national show.
Yes.
With Radio Maria, we expand to, 14 of their locations?
I think it's 11. 6 states, 11 affiliates.
And then, of course, we're online.
That's right.
On the app, and you can listen anywhere in the world.
That's right. And further, we are now at 10,000 watts here at Carolina Catholic Radio, so we're reaching more areas. Areas like where you live, it wasn't necessarily stronger or is not necessarily stronger.
Getting stronger every day now.
That's right.
Stronger
So you can say we have scores of fans tuning in each week to hear Faith and Sport.
I think we could say that. Listen, folks, this is Faith and Sport, where we apply our faith to all aspects of sport. So whether you are a player, an athlete actually, whether you are a coach, whether you're an administrator, a parent, a grandparent of an athlete, this is the show for you because we take a look at sport through a Catholic lens. Brother, the last time we talked, it was before Easter.
Yeah, it was. Right? And you just had your fifth child.
Fifth child.
How's he doing?
He is 6 weeks old today. He's very healthy. He's gaining weight, which is a huge thing. Nights are tough because sometimes he decides to feed. Sometimes he decides not to. Sometimes he decides to sleep. Sometimes he decides not to. But everybody that's ever had a baby knows what that's like. We are so blessed to have this little monkey along for the ride. He's doing well. Thank you very much.
And 5 children running around the house, I can imagine.
Oh, it's crazy. Actually, 4 running around the house. The other one is just sitting there.
Well, no, I'm talking about you as the other child.
I appreciate that, brother. Listen, you're headed for a big trip. When are you going to Texas?
Yeah, this will May 7th. It's the week of the Wells Fargo Championship. We'll talk about that a little bit later.
Oh, that's right. I was going to ask you about that.
We're going to go down to Austin, see our son, spend about 3 or 4 or 5 days there. It's going to be great.
You and Jackie, your wife.
And we may go to San Antonio to see some of amigos down there,
very
too.
Good.
Yeah,
very good.
Some Mexican food enchiladas.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you truly appreciate the Mexican food down there? Like there's no contest. Like if you were to go to one of the local kind of like
it's all mom and pop.
Yeah.
And it's done with grandma and grandpa in the back kitchen, cooking up the good stuff.
And it's outstanding.
It is outstanding.
Yeah.
No, you can gain a lot of weight living in Texas.
No, in fact, I was going to say, I walked into this studio not really hungry, but just now I became kind
We could talk about barbacoa, get the barbecue, got the ribs, the sausage, the beans.
When's the next time you're going to make one of those orders in Texas?
And then a little cerveza.
Freeze dry it or whatever you have to do. Bring it here to the studio so I can enjoy it, brother.
Homemade tacos with the tamales. Muy bien,
stop
senor.
talking about it. Just come through for me.
Folks,
you're listening to
Ed take a bite out of one of those, see smoke come out of his ears.
Food Network here.
Folks, you're listening to Faith and Sport here on Carolina Catholic Radio. It's also a co-production of Radio Maria. Ed, before we get into our hit or miss, this was actually going to be it's a co-hit of the week. Actually, mine's a hit as well, but this was going to be the co-hit. My son plays Little League Baseball, and my daughter at the same complex. It's called MARA. It's an acronym, Matthews Area Recreational Athletics. And they have they have 14 different fields, and they play softball, baseball there primarily. There's a rugby field, there's a baseball field, there's a lacrosse field, and so forth. Anyway, because of this kind of growing need to have more faith being brought to the field and more morality and ethics being brought to the field, they now put signs all over the complex. And this is like a several acre. I mean, think about it. If it has 14 baseball and softball fields, just how big this complex is. So I think they're a little tired of the complaints from the other parents, the complaints from the umpires, the complaints from the administrators or the coaches. And the coaches themselves are culprits to bad sportsmanship as well. But these are a couple of the signs. And the signs as in the type you would see in somebody's front yard during a political campaign, right?
Okay.
And these are the 3 signs. One of them says 2% of all student athletes get a scholarship. So enjoy today's game. In other words, just enjoy. But this one's even better. Enjoy today's game. No scholarships will be given out today.
Yeah. No pressure.
I love that. But here was a good one as well. And it just had a couple bullet points on there and said, these athletes are children, the coaches have families, and the umpires are human. So it's a clear effort to just go, folks, put it in perspective. Chill.
Yeah. Chill out. It's like some of those signs you go when you go by a church.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's like those church signs, the same kind of theme, but it makes you that works.
I think it does work. It puts it in perspective, and I'm going to encourage everybody out there because we talk about prayer and the power of prayer, and that we encourage each other to do it. We say, I'm going to pray for you on that issue and so forth. But that's the one thing. If you find yourself being negative toward the umpire, toward other families, toward the coaches, opposing coaches, whatever the case is, when you go to a game of any sort, I suggest you pray on it. That's the last thing you do before you get out of your car.
What great advice for this time of year. Now, do you role model that? Do you actually walk the talk?
Oh, no. I threw a beer bottle at the umpire the other day. No, I'm teasing.
Of course. Drink beer.
No, of course. I know. Well, I got somebody else's beer bottle and threw it at the umpire. No, I think I do. I've matured a great deal. I never was one to yell on the field, especially as a parent. I think I'm always kind of quiet. I rarely say anything. But in fairness to this situation, I haven't seen a great deal of misbehavior at these games. But, of course, there's literally 14 games going on at the same time. I'm not exaggerating. They have 14 fields. And on Saturday morning, you have to walk sometimes about 5 or 6 minutes just from where you park to get to the field you're at. That's how big this complex is. And I've seen a couple, displays of poor sportsmanship, but my guess is over a weekend, these guys hear some complaints. And it's amazing because the thing that we have to remember is, first of all, those volunteer coaches are just that. They're not paid by anybody. And those umpires, if you could have a scale of pay, their scale of their money they make, the money they make, I should say, is just beyond voluntary.
It's like a stipend.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly not a salary. And I think maybe my guess is they make $15 a game, $20, maybe more than that. I don't know.
Did you play organized sports growing up? I mean, like a little guy. So you have some fond memories.
Oh yeah. I had a great experience.
So you're trying to create memories for these kids.
No doubt about it. And this is yet one more time where one word can be used to describe our suggestion from here at Faith in Sport to you if you struggle with this issue, and that is perspective. Put this in perspective, folks. Once again, I'll repeat the best one. Enjoy today's game. No scholarships will be given out today. I love that. That is fantastic. So listen, brother, as always, we do what's called a hit or miss. Anybody joining us here for the first time, what Ed and I do, or when it's Carlos, when he's joining us from Washington, D.C., we do what's called the hit and miss, in which we talk about something in sport. Often it's related to character, ethics, or morality, and how it weaves into the world of sport. Brother, as always, you get to go first. What's your hit or miss?
Well, the RBC championship down here in Hilton Head, Stuart Sink won, and he won commandingly, I think by 5 shots or something.
4.
Yeah. He led it the whole all day Sunday.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he was well ahead.
Mm-hmm. And on the bag was his son.
That's right.
And the CBS, I think CBS did it. They constantly were showing the son.
That's right.
And the relation and the moment when he won it, or he was claimed, the family getting together.
That's right.
It was just a family experience. His son is the caddy. It reminded me of who was that a few weeks ago? His girlfriend was the caddy.
Who was that?
Gosh, now I say it, I should remember that.
Yeah, we could look that up.
But again, family members being involved in something professional like that. And I think that's really cool.
This could have changed, and that was your hit. Just seeing the dad and the son together, and him helping his dad win. And he actually does help him win in this sense. He's a good golfer himself. In fact, the last time there was a father-son professional tournament, the father is the professional, and the son, and I don't know exactly the parameters, but it's only father-son. The last time they had that, just before COVID hit, he and his son won. That very son that was playing the caddy.
And he's not a young guy, right?
I don't know how old he is, actually.
He's at 47?
Oh, Stuart Sink. Yeah, he's 47. And I want to say his son is mid-20s or something like that.
Sure.
But I couldn't help but thinking, Ed, this is awful, but I'm going to share this on air. But I couldn't help but thinking when they were celebrating at the end, I mean, they hugged and they embraced each other a few times when it looked like they were going to win or when they actually did win, and the smiles on their faces. But the smile on the son's face was bigger than anybody's in the scene, and I couldn't help but thinking the following. Those caddies make a lot of money, and they make a lot of money when their player wins. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, this is an odd thing about professional golf. If you win the tournament, the caddy gets 10% of your paycheck.
And if it's your dad and he's already filthy, he's
yeah.
well-to-do, then maybe he got it all.
But here's the corker. At second place and beyond, you only get 5%. In fact, think about it, it should be the other way around, because 5% of $1.6 million, the very next place, it's going to be a hefty paycheck, but it's not. It's only going to be a fraction of that.
Is that the minimum? Now, if you have a generous heart, do you throw them a few more bones?
Well, I think actually Stuart Sink would say, son, I'm going to take you out to dinner, and that's it. But no, I'm sure he was contractually obligated, and I'm sure. And think about it, Chris, can you look up what was the winning pay for yesterday's RBC Heritage? How much did he make? And do 10% of that, and my guess it's well over $100,000. Because
no doubt,
my guess usually tournaments like that are worth anywhere between $1.1 and $1.6 million.
Yeah, and the RBC is a nice tournament.
Yeah, so you would assume that it's pretty good.
So that was my hit. How about you?
There you go, brother. My hit comes from news that was released a little over a week ago, and it has to do with women's national soccer team. And in particular, it's a hit because a federal judge rules against the women's national soccer team, and I think this is justice. Here's why. The women's team filed suit in the U.S. District Court of the Central District of California in March 2019, and ironically, it was just months after the U.S. men's soccer team failed to qualify for the World Cup. So the reason I mention that is that there are few national teams of any sport that are more successful than the women's national soccer team. If I'm not mistaken, one of our listeners could correct me here, but of the last 6 big tournaments, the last 3 World Cups and the last 3 Olympics, I think they've won 5 out of 6 of those championships.
Nice, yeah.
And of course, the men have nothing to say on that, right? They have no championship. In fact, they have a hard time qualifying for the Master or for the World Cup. And in the Olympics, I think it's tough for them to qualify as well. I think there's more qualifications. I think it's a little easier for them to qualify. But still, it was on the outset of that to magnify the fact that look at how much we win, and we want equal pay as do the men. But the problem stands in this. This is direct from the judge that ruled against the women. The women's national team rejected an offer to be paid under the same pay-to-play structure as the men's national team, and the women's national team was willing to forego higher bonuses for other benefits, such as greater base compensation and the guarantee of a higher number of contracted players. So basically what he was saying is, all I'm doing is upholding the contract that you actually signed. And one of the reasons I thought this was such a big hit, and I thought this was justice, is you and I both know, being fans of professional sport, how many times, it's countless, how many times professional athletes of all sports want to negate the contract that they signed because they are better in the sport than was anticipated, and they want more money. And I've always been frustrated by that, probably like you have, going, then what is a contract for? And because the professional sports teams of all those sports, right, hockey, basketball, football, and so forth, they want to be seen as generous. Almost in all cases, they tear up that contract and they renegotiate that contract. There's another thing to be said about this, brother. It comes down to supply and demand. In the last World Cup for the women, they generated $131 million. That's a lot of money. That should sound like a lot of money. That is a lot of money.
And they generated through what?
They generate it through primarily TV and revenue at the stadium and merchandise.
And sponsorships.
Well, of course, yeah, sponsorships. But that comes
which
directly-
feeds the revenue through TV.
TV. 131 million. So keep that number in mind. Huge number. It's a generous number. It's a great number, especially since how far, heck, it was just 25 years ago. They were crawling, struggling just to be put on the map on the women's side. The men made $6 billion. And that's B with the boy, $6 billion. So literally about 6 times as much is generated. But here's the odd thing about the women. They keep using as their argument, Ed, we win, and we win all the time. And not only do we win all the time, we win at the Olympics and we win at the World Cup. That has nothing to do with this. No. It's the money that's generated. If you are in the pool of teams in the World Cup, you're going to make a much bigger paycheck, even if you finish, say, 8th or 16th in there, versus somebody who, these women, they're in, like, for instance, I think it was the last World Cup. They beat a team from Thailand 13-0.
Yeah, I remember that.
That was World Cup play. How much time, effort, and money do you think Thailand puts into women's soccer? Probably none, right? And the reason I say that is, yeah, congratulations, good for them that they won 13-0. But the point is this: if people like Thailand are in there, they're probably struggling just to field a team. They're probably not going to generate a whole lot of money. They probably think it's wonderful just to be there. With those World Cup teams for the men, they put in time, effort, and tons of money to those programs.
To use your point, and I know Chris looked it up, Stuart Sink made $1.3 million yesterday at the RBC.
That means his son made $130,000.
Okay, so who won the Masters? Hideki Matsuyama?
Yep.
Yeah, he made $2.1 million. Why?
Yep. Why?
Because of revenue.
That's right.
Because the
revenue
sponsorships through charity and such generated more. Did Stuart Sink play a better game? Well, yeah, he won it by, what'd you say, 4 shots?
4 shots.
Matsuyama only won it by 1 shot. So he should get the same as the Masters.
Well, the point.
Or I even got a better example.
Let's hear it.
It's your
Bob
drummer.
Seger, Silver Bullet Band.
Yeah, listen to this, folks. When we were talking this, John and I, a couple weeks ago. Go ahead.
No, it's just last week when I said, listen, I just want to give you a heads up. My hit of the week is going to be the women's soccer.
The judge, yeah.
Yeah. And Chris, I think I mentioned this both either on air or to you. I'm a former drummer, right? I've been drumming since I was 13 years old, literally going on 40-plus years of being a drummer. And when I was in the city of Detroit, I would play at this local bar with my band for about approximately 2 hours. Right downtown at that same night, Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band was playing too. And they played for about 2 hours. They had a guitar player. They had a bass player. They had a singer. They had a drummer. In our band, we had a singer, a guitar player, right? We had the same guys, and I was drumming for my band. But why did we make $200 that night? And Bob Seger made probably over $20,000 that night. Right. Why is that?
Because people bought tickets to see Seger. They didn't buy tickets to see John Acquaviva.
Yeah. To see King Ruby Dewey and the Bugadillies.
No, what was the name of the group?
We performed under several names, but one of them is, I kid you not, we performed at this high school dance, and we performed because the other 2 people in the band were my brother Dave and my brother Joe, and the name of the band was Acquaviva.
Put that down. We need to pull some audio from that.
Yeah.
That's a true story. We performed as Acquaviva. And the same thing, and by the way, that was a total volunteer gig. We didn't make any money.
Here in Faith and Sport, the host speaks from the heart. I never knew that about him. Now all of you, including our Radio Maria listeners, know about the group
Acquaviva.
That's a true story.
A sports drink.
It sounds like a beverage of some sort.
But anyhow, back to your point.
Listen, folks, you're listening to Faith and Sport. This is where we merge sport and virtue. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. Producer is Chris Pressler. Special guest today is Ed Billick. He's in studio with us today. We just got done talking about our hit or miss of the week. Before we go on from this whole thing about the women's soccer team, I want to mention a couple other things. Speaking of revenue, right? And this, I had no idea. The Red Wings are so bad this year, Ed, right? You probably go to NHL.com a lot more than I do, the National Hockey League, more than I do. And one of the reasons I don't do it is because, let's face it, one of the reasons you go to MLB.com or NFL.com, is you want to see the stats and or the record of your players, where they stand with other people, right? And the Red Wings are so bad, they're last in their division. But one thing I hadn't noticed, and Ed, you could tell me and correct me right now that they've been doing this for years, but I just noticed a couple of days ago, the divisions are sponsored by known corporations. Like it used to be the Smythe Division or the Eastern Division. Norris Division. But they're named after people that were directly involved with the sport yesteryear.
Hockey legends.
Yeah, they're hockey legends. They're hockey names. Now get this. The four... Chris, did you know this?
No, I didn't know.
No, Ed, before I mentioned this before on the air, you had no idea of this.
I knew of it this year.
Okay.
And
So
I ignored it. It's
yeah,
like,
and you probably couldn't have named them, right?
No, I still can't.
So rather than be calling the Western Division, it's called Honda West. The Central Division
Sounds like a dealership
yeah,
down in Charlotte.
Exactly. Discover Central.
Sounds like a credit card.
There you go. Mass Mutual East Division. Mass Mutual is their insurance company.
Well, it's,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, and the last one is Scotia North. And to tell the truth, what is Scotia?
Scotia Bank.
Oh, okay. You're right.
Yeah,
You're
the
right.
bank.
Scotia Bank.
The
Yeah, very
then
good.
they got the Scotia Center up there in what was that, Toronto or Montreal.
Well, listen, folks, before we move on. Listen,
So this weekend's Hit and Miss is sponsored by... Oh, you got a sponsor
that's right.
now.
That's right. It's sponsored by. Listen to this, folks. Listen, I want you to check out Carolina Crawl Space Pros. Folks, the hot and humid summer months are coming, and this could lead to mold, insect problems, and several other issues.
Sure can.
Owner Jeff Wolf and his guys at Carolina Crawl Space Pros can come out for a free estimate. I know Jeff. I trust Jeff. And if you go to the website, our website, you can find out contact info for Carolina Crawl Space Pros, as well as a special offer. So that's Carolina Crawl Space Pros. Check them out and more information on the Carolina Catholic Radio page, and just look up Faith in Sport, and you can see a picture
There's
of Jeff.
a lot of funky stuff going into crawl space. You got one at the house?
We don't, thankfully. We have a basement, and that thing remains pretty dry. But who knows? Maybe Jeff was at that house before we bought it, and they did a great job at Carolina Crawl Space Pros. By the way, don't go to bed with crawl space woes. Go to bed with crawl space pro. Oh no, that's
You just made that up?
no that.
Creative here for folks.
Yeah.
If you want to sponsor the show, you not only get the voice of John Acquaviva, you get his comedic, right, Chris?
That's right.
All right, so listen, brother. Let's talk a little bit more about the Wells Fargo. So each year, how long has the Wells Fargo Championship been hosted here in Charlotte?
We're going back to 03, 02, I think.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's been many, many years now.
And how many years have you been involved in the?
This would be my 7th or 8th. I marshaled for a while, and the last couple of years I've been at the Media Center.
Got it.
It's a lot of fun.
And I'm just curious. I know you're looking forward. You got a lot of stuff going on in life. You do the sports at WBT and so forth. And you got your grandparent, you and Jackie, to your the kids of your two children. You're going to go to Austin to visit your son. But do you, like, going away with this, are you like, man, I'm missing out on something? Or he's like, I'll just go next year.
Well, yeah, and it was one of these kind of things that, there's PGA rules with COVID and all in covering it. Those, the 4 tournament days are a blast to be there.
Oh, yeah.
So you forego it this year to go see your son. So, but hopefully I'm in there on Tuesday, Wednesday, and the Pro-Am this year is named the Roy Williams Pro-Am.
No kidding?
Yeah, Mac Brown, they're going to be honoring Roy for the Pro-Am because, of course, he's retiring.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a fun week regardless. The Wells Fargo, Quail Hollow is just a beautiful course.
It is beautiful. I've seen it, yeah.
And the competition is always really good. And Lee Patterson and the media group do a wonderful job out there, not to name all the other volunteers that just give up their time. And they pay to be a volunteer.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought it was like swag bags or something. You get a free mug.
I can't recall, but you pay for the shirt. Now, you could get extras, but you pay for the shirt, and you pay for the privilege of being a marshal or being a volunteer. So,
oh, I thought you said you get paid. You mean you pay them to be a...
Yeah, absolutely.
Boy, that's the gig, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah.
Is hey, you want to volunteer with us? That'll cost you $400.
Well, it's not that much, of course. Maybe $50-$60, but you get to experience
of course.
live and in person. I remember being a marshal one time, and Phil Mickelson, a ball that just landed 3 feet from me.
How to grab that thing?
So I get all the kids, say, come on over. Phil's going to be hitting a ball here. And we were right there watching Phil hit the ball.
What if you grab that ball? Let's say you switched it with one of those range balls that was like yellow,
He's been watching too many of the Three Stooges.
Yeah.
Or Caddyshack 3.
Certainly.
You can't be
seriously,
touching the balls.
What is the penalty for a fan if you grab a ball and say you stick it in your pocket and you put another one there? I've just thought of this, but I'm wondering they have to
I
come out.
guarantee you there's some. You
Yeah.
call.
You probably have to give your
the chief
T-shirt back.
marshal.
You probably have to give your T-shirt
And
back.
yeah, they arrest the guy.
Folks, listen, coming up in just 1 minute.
Anyhow, the Wells Fargo Championship's coming up here. In the
Oh
first
yeah,
of May.
very good. I'm looking forward to it, whether you're going to be there or not, brother. We're going to do our weekend headlines in a minute, but folks, stay tuned because after the break, we have a great guest. This is part 2 with Megan Harrington. She is a documentary producer and writer, and one of her recent efforts from Family Theater Productions is Pray, the story of Father Patrick Peyton. Alicia and I watched this last night. It is so impressive.
Where did you get it? Where did you watch it?
We watched it via Prime.
Okay, Prime Video?
Yeah, and most of the projects, Megan, she works as the producer, but this one she co-wrote. And it is an amazing story of a priest that I had very little knowledge of. And there was film of him in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s speaking to 50,000, 100,000 people all over the world.
Story of Patrick Peyton.
Story of Patrick Peyton. Anyway, she's going to come up in the second half of the show. In fact, right after the breaks, folks. So
compelling.
Yeah, and then we're going to do the quick Q&A with Dr. A, and then we're going to do PGA Golfer of the Week.
As opposed to the person that won.
No, that's right. It's right. In fact, it has nothing to do. Well, it has something to do, maybe if you won or not, but this is independent of that. So listen, let's go to the weekend headlines. Chris, I think you got some music for us, brother.
Yes, we do.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat. The human drama of athletic competition.
It's Weekend Headlines with Dr. John Acquaviva on Faith and Sport.
Here we go, folks, to the PGA. As we mentioned, 47-year-old Stuart Sink won the RBC Heritage. Despite the big deal about winning at such an advanced age, numerous golfers have won a PGA event. In fact, after the break, Ed, I want to talk a little bit more about that. Anyway, still, congrats to Sink. The Zurich Classic begins later this week. In NASCAR, Alex Bowman takes the flag with a swift late move against the field at the Toyota Owners 400. The Geico 500 is next week. Chris, do you care whether it's 400, 500, 450? What number impressed you the most about?
I think the 600 Charlotte Motor Speedway.
Is it 600 really?
The Coca-Cola 600.
Oh my gosh. They're going to run out of gas someday and everybody's going to look to the NASCAR people and go, what are you guys going 600 miles for? It's crazy. In the NFL, numerous players from several teams are sitting out this month's voluntary workouts. Seemingly more players than ever are sitting out, which is frustrating coaches, the administration, and some teammates. Perhaps a direct result of the league likely moving to expand the regular season from 16 games to 17 starting this fall. I think that's all but done, right, Ed?
Oh, no, it's a done deal.
It is a done deal. Some of them are so frustrated by this. Anyway, Major League Baseball. This is the story of the week. Sean Kazmir of the Atlanta Braves pinch hit in a game over the weekend.
Yep.
Why is
That's
that?
right.
Why is that a big deal? Because this 36-year-old player, Sean Kazmir, last played in the major leagues in 2008, having played in over 1,000 minor league games between these big league stints. Good for Sean.
Never give up.
Never give up,
On
brother.
your dream.
I love stories like this, and I think everybody likes to hear stories like this because it's just it's perseverance. It's mixed with talent, mixed with blessing that they called it. They could easily just ignored that.
13 years.
Yeah, a long
Riding the buses, playing minor league ball.
1,000. So needless to say, who is the character you think they compared him to? I know. Can you mention it?
Yo, what movie? Go ahead.
Bull Durham. What was the
Yeah.
character's name? Crash Davis.
Oh, okay.
Who played him? Kevin Costner.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Kevin Costner played that. Did you ever see this movie, Chris?
Yeah,
I thought
good
it was
movie.
excellent. And you know one of the reasons it really had quality, and I mean this, is because the guy who directed it, he played minor league baseball. He was minor league, and then he became a Hollywood guy. So he was like, this is a perfect...
Talk about passion.
Yeah.
That's all
Oh, yeah.
passion.
This
Good
is fantastic.
stuff.
So there you have it, folks. Sports headlines that may or may not change your life. So, folks, just stay with us for more Faith in Sport. I'll hand it over to Chris, and we'll go into a break.
You are listening to Faith and Sport on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network, 1270 AM WCGC. Also streaming at carolinacatholicradio.org and on the Carolina Catholic Radio app. We're also broadcasting across Radio Maria, so all of you Radio Maria listeners, stay tuned for more Faith and Sport. Right after the break, we've got more Faith and Sport coming up on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network. And if you can't get enough Faith and Sport, tune in to encore presentations of Faith and Sport throughout the week on Carolina Catholic Radio and carolinacatholicradio.org on demand.
The Carolina Catholic Video on Demand section is now available with over 40 video segments from our 12-hour virtual conference held on September 12th. You'll find it under the On Demand tab at carolinacatholicradio.org.
Hello, my friends. I'm Christopher Check, president of Catholic Answers, and we're excited to work alongside Carolina Catholic Radio Network. We all know that Catholic radio is a great help to Catholics who desire a deeper understanding of their faith, but here is something you might not know. Many, many non-Catholics are brought into the church because of Catholic radio. That makes the Carolinas, where only 1 in 10 Christians is a Catholic, real mission territory. Let's get to work. Your listener-supported Carolina Catholic Radio Network is delivering every day the fullness of the truth, and I am looking forward to being there in May to help them with their vital ministry. I hope to see you at one of the events we are planning, and if you'd like to set up a Catholic Answers event at your parish, send a note to feedback@carolinacatholicradio.org. That's feedback@carolinacatholicradio.org. See you in May.
Teachers that care, professors that care about you. Just an awesome experience all around.
There's peace here. There's encouragement here.
Faculty, everybody that works here, they really set you up for success.
I don't think I have ever felt as loved and as supported and as encouraged as I have at the Abbey.
There's something here that's underlying and intrinsic. There's like a spirit of love and community. And I think the spirit is God's presence here.
Belmont Abbey College, a world away, but close to home. Visit us at belmontabbeycollege.edu.
Hello, Carolina Catholic family. As a result of this past year's extraordinary events, tithing, donations, and monthly pledges came to a complete halt. This put us in a severe cash crunch to pay our monthly bills. The reality is that without your immediate financial support, this apostolate will cease to exist. Over the past 2+ years, Carolina Catholic has expanded its local lineup with 7 new programs heard every day at 5 p.m. We also feature Carolina Catholic afternoons that start with 1 p.m. Mass from St. Mark and conclude at 4 p.m. with the Clergy Corner and Homily of the Day. All programs are available as podcasts on both our website and mobile app. When last September's Eucharistic Congress was canceled, it was Carolina Catholic who stepped up with a 12-hour, 6-platform virtual fall conference. Upon completion, we committed to continue operating across all 6 media platforms. As a 100% listener-supported 501c3 nonprofit, Carolina Catholic needs your financial support now to continue operations. Please make your pledge to donate today and pray for the success of this campaign. God bless you.
We are back once again with more Faith and Sport on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network on WCGC 1270 AM Charlotte. Also streaming at carolinacatholicradio.org and on the Carolina Catholic Radio app, and we are joining you on Radio Maria. So welcome back to all of our Radio Maria listeners to more Faith and Sport. I'm Chris, the producer, and once again, here he is, our host, Dr. John Acquaviva.
I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. I teach exercise science at Wingate University, and once a week I come down here and we talk faith and sport, where we merge sport and virtue. Listen, in 2 minutes, Megan Harrington's going to join us. She is a documentary, and she's a documentary writer and producer, and one of her latest projects is Pray, the Story of Patrick Peyton. And as we talked just before the break, I actually had a chance to see this last night with Alicia. I thought it was a great effort. You might recognize her name because this is part 2 with Megan. She was on just a couple weeks ago, and I said, Megan, we got a lot more to talk about. Please come back. She was gracious enough with her time. She's going to join us here in a couple minutes. By the way, her other projects are Unplanned, which is probably the biggest movie she's been associated with.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the fantastic thing was about the whole story of Planned Parenthood and a young gal's experience with them. She ended up leaving, joining the Catholic faith, and that story is a great one. So check that out. She also is part of the Dating Project. And when she was on last time, she talked about the house that Rob built, and it was about her coach from the University of Montana. And the connection that Megan and I have, in particular, that she has with this show, is that she's a former college basketball player. In fact, her coach was in the title of that movie, and she had a great experience with him, and he's impacted so many people's lives. So that story, again, was the house that Rob built. Now, before Megan comes on, there was something that, Ed, you and I mentioned about Stewart Cink. Now, yesterday, he won the RBC Heritage on the PGA Tour, and this morning, yesterday, even probably starting on Friday or Saturday, they couldn't help but talking about his age. So one of the things I did today was I looked up, is he the oldest guy to ever win a PGA Tour? What do you got there?
Not close at all. The oldest ever was 52 years, 10 months with Sam Snead. And that was back in the 1965 Greater Greensboro Open right here in the Carolinas.
Yeah, there you go.
Now, Sam Snead, so, a legendary.
He is.
But Art Wall, 51 years, 7 months out of the 75 Greater Milwaukee. So there's these one time, you get lucky. But then you go to Davis Love III. He was 51 years, 4 months when he won the Wyndham Championship, just about 6 years ago, back in 2015. James Barnes, the 1937 Long Island, never heard of the guy. John Barnum, the 1962 Cajun Classic. These are all 51 years, 8 months.
That's right.
Craig Statler.
That's right.
The Walrus.
50
years, 1 month at the BC Open up there in Endicott, New York. Familiar with that tournament. And then Raymond Floyd, Woody Austin, Peter Jacobson. Peter, Woody, all 49. Raymond Floyd, 49 years old. And the tournaments they won. So he's not even in the top 10.
No. I know. In fact, he'd probably rank around 15th because there's probably a few more people. And the only thing we had access to was the top 10.
If you won the PGA Championship, you would be by far.
But you know what? One of the things I find interesting about this, Ed, is that because right, there's this emphasis on fitness, right? And that's one of the reasons why people on the golf tour, for instance, hit further than ever. You're right, the equipment has something to do with it, but athletes in basketball, football, they're all stronger than they were against their peers of yesteryear. But most of these were not recent. You would think a lot of them would be more recent because there's this emphasis more on fitness, flexibility, strength, muscular endurance, and so forth. And a lot of these guys, it happened a long time ago. Like the one, you mentioned James Barnes. He won it 51 years and 3 months. It was the 1937 Long Island Open.
No, but you also think about these younger guys that are coming up that are just awesome. So they play a better day than the older guys. That's why they move to the senior tour.
Oh, that's right. They just wait to turn 50 because it's 50 years old, right? Yeah, and they wait to turn 50 and they're like, maybe I can win. But the problem is there's a bunch of guys that turned 50 the couple years before. They're on that tour as well. And my guess, it's just as difficult.
So that's why guys like you and I, we root for the older guys. Get the big paycheck.
That is true. I always tend to do that. So good job, Stewart Cink. But the irony was he was not one of the oldest guys ever. He's in the top 20, but you would think he would be in the top 10 being at 47. So that's good stuff. Folks, if you're just joining us, this is Faith in Sport, where we apply our faith to all aspects of sport. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. I'm joined in studio by Ed Billick. He joins us just about once a month. And then in the other chair is producer Chris Pressler. Chris, my thanks to you, brother, because you sit here in the studio, you put up with Ed and I's nonsense, but you do a lot of stuff outside of the studio and for Carolina Catholic Radio, brother. I want to thank you for everything.
He has skills with Adobe Audition. He can make us sound good.
He does make us sound good.
Thank you for making us sound good.
In particular, when my voice comes out, it's really Mickey Mouse, and he changes it through this magic thing, and it's no longer Mickey Mouse. It's more like Harrison Ford.
He has the skills.
Hey, listen, let's bring on our guest. I'm excited to have her on again. I am so thankful she's going to join us. She is Megan Harrington. She's a documentary writer and producer, and her most recent project is Pray, the Story of Father Patrick Peyton. Megan Harrington, welcome back to the program.
Oh, great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, this is great. So, Megan, it was great because last night was wonderful for Alicia and I. The baby was asleep. As I think I told you, we have a newborn. He's 6 weeks old today, and that little monkey slept and gave us an opportunity to watch your project, The Story of Patrick Peyton. Tell me and the audience, who was Patrick Peyton?
Well, Father Patrick Peyton was a force of nature who I believe is one of the most influential religious figures of the 20th century. He's probably somebody that you haven't heard of.
That's right.
But you've heard the saying, the family that prays together stays together. So
right.
He's one of the most famous people you've never heard of in a sense. And this force of nature was a poor Irish immigrant. He set sail for America in 1928. He wants to become a millionaire.
Mm-hmm.
And with the help of the most iconic celebrities of the time, he goes on to champion the message, the most famous message, the family that prays together stays together.
That's awesome. And he was as ordinary as a priest could be. It's just that he was on fire, not just for the priesthood, not just to have the Blessed Virgin intercede for us, but it was the rosary. So, but what made him so special? In this movie, I was shocked, Megan, to see the number of people that he drew that came to hear him speak, and then ultimately he probably said the rosary, at least part of the rosary, on each of those occasions. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Okay.
He was absolutely a man in love with the Blessed Mother.
So what was it about him that you found out, right? You talked to his relatives back in Ireland. You did a lot of research on folks that knew him here in the United States of America. But what was so special about him that he could draw so many people to hear him speak and to pray with him?
I think it was his humility and the purpose that drove his life. He knew why he was on earth, and that was to champion the message that the family that prays together stays together. And he didn't know that from the time he was little, but he certainly knew that and was given that charge as he went through ordination and ultimately became a priest. It is his ordinary nature. That's what you said. He's just an ordinary priest. It's accessible. He's accessible to all of us because he wasn't a pope, a priest, a king, a knight. He was a simple man who knew his purpose and knew what God wanted of him, and he accepted, said yes, and with the help of the Blessed Mother, carried it out.
Absolutely. Folks, you're listening to Faith in Sport. We're talking with Megan Harrington. She's a documentary producer and writer, and we're talking about one of her latest projects, The Story of Patrick Peyton. By the way, you might recognize her voice. You might recognize her name because she was on the show just a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about the house that Rob built, another project of hers, but also check out Unplanned, which is probably the one that you're most familiar with in her in her Rolodex of projects. And also, she is the producer behind a project called, The Dating Project. Now, back to Patrick Peyton, Megan, the story of Patrick Peyton. Something in general, probably for a documentary movie, it has to be put on your desk. Something has to come in front of you. Tell us briefly the story of what got the ball rolling to do this project.
Well, I was an independent contractor at the time, so a producer for hire. I had worked on The Dating Project, which you had mentioned, and Family Theater Productions was part of The Dating Project.
Got it.
And so I was introduced to them through this process. I certainly knew of them, and I knew people who had worked there, but on the professional side was more was moving the ball forward in that way with them, specifically related to different types of projects, but just more discussion. And then Father Peyton became venerable at the end of 2017.
Got it.
And that's really when the ball got rolling with this project. They approached me about producing it, and I knew nothing about him besides the saying, which I didn't really know was him until not that long before. So really, I was given the great gift of being asked to be part of it.
It's outstanding. We enjoyed it last night again. In fact, it was on my list of stuff to do, and then when you agreed to be on the show today, I said to Alicia, we got to get this movie, and we went to Prime, and there it was, and we enjoyed the heck out of it. But I feel most humbled because I, like you, Megan, I'm a cradle Catholic, and I've been faithful minus a couple years after college where I would skip Mass every once in a while, but I was always a Catholic. But clearly, I mean, I was in seminary for a couple of years, a few years ago. I attended Catholic school, and I've been faithful certainly virtually all my adult life, and I'd never heard of this man. And it's amazing how this stuff, it can escape you, but it really shows, first of all, the vastness of all the people who are faithful, and also that if it passes you by, because this happened in decades prior, it's easy that you don't know about this, but it is also humbling. And my guess is, to a degree, you were humbled by the fact that, like, why didn't I know this guy, right?
Oh, well, every day I get humbled, but this was definitely a moment where I couldn't believe that I didn't know who this man was in the things that he achieved in the course of his life. And partially, it's a combination of things. Fulton Sheen was on camera a lot more. He had prime time.
That's right.
So there's certain names that have more resonance with the faithful because you hear of them more, and there was a different way that they were presenting themselves to the world, where Father Peyton was more behind the scenes. Not to say he wasn't ever on camera. And then the rallies, of course, those are from decades ago. So, but it's funny, so many people say the same thing. How come I didn't?
Yeah.
How is it that we don't know about him? That is a big question, really.
But let's face it, often when we are exposed to something, it's through something like a radio interview. We see a TV special, or in this case, we see a documentary. We see something about him, and then literally 10 years from now, there's going to be a whole lot more, higher percentage of Catholics, for instance, that know who Patrick Peyton is. There was something that happened that was powerful experience for you in making this film, right, Megan? Tell us about that.
Mm-hmm. Well, we were in Ireland filming, so we had the great opportunity to go to where Father grew up and walk the streets that he walked, the church where he was baptized, the baptismal font, the graveyard where his parents were laid to rest, and just the plot where he grew up and talking to his nephew, and it was very powerful. And the director, John Zippity, had said, I really want a shot of a priest overlooking the bluffs, with the idea that this did not end here. This story, his mission, continues on with each of us. That is, it's a call for all of us to continue that firmness and that commitment to prayer. So the day that we were going to go, I said to his family, where's a great bluff? And they said, Dunpatrick. And I was like, okay. And they said, we called ahead. It's Saughton. And when in Ireland, when it's Saughton, it's not like other places. It's not going to be sunny. It's there for the day. So I told the director, and I said, there's probably not going to be able to see the ocean.
Yeah.
He said, if there is a chance we could see the ocean, I want to go.
Yeah.
And it's about an hour away. So we finish up the interview. We're scrambling for time because the sun's going down, and it's later in the day. And this is the time we actually wanted to get sunset. So packed up all the stuff, turn around, and the Peytons, his niece and nephew, had set the table with china and everything, So it's not as though we could leave. So they were so gracious in hosting us for lunch. We eat lunch, and we're thinking, which is more dinner, and we started heading to the bluffs with Father Peyton, his nephew.
Sure.
Very confusing. There's two Peytons.
That's right. That's right.
Well, as we're going, we're praying. We're like, please let us be able to get the light. Let it be clear because the sun's going down.
Yeah.
We arrive. Everybody gets out of the van and the cars, and they get set up real quick because the sun is going down. And Father Peyton, the reenactment, Father Peyton, starts walking towards the bluffs. And I'm standing behind him. He has white hair, very bright white hair.
Yeah.
And kind of, I hope we get this. And all of a sudden, the clouds part and the sun rises. And it's just the most magnificent. You saw it in the movie, the end shot is him on the bluff. Clear as day. You can see the ocean. It doesn't even look like there's been rain. And his head looked like the Eucharist. It was so bright and white. And all I could say was, dear God.
Yes.
And everybody there really couldn't explain what happened. But I know it was Father Peyton with a little wink from heaven saying, I got this, I've got you guys. And it was something I most certainly will never forget, of just that presence of, you didn't hear anything, but you felt it.
Absolutely. Yeah, in fact, this goes to something that once somebody said to me, and that is, we don't know God so much as we experience God, and that's how we know God, right? And what a special moment that was for you. Now, this was extra special because with a name like Megan Harrington, Megan, I have to assume that you have ancestors, right? You're Irish.
I do, yes.
And
I am.
Have you ever been to Ireland before this project?
I had lived in Cork City.
Oh, there you go. So you speak Irish well.
I can't even speak English well, John. I'm gonna finish that up, and then I'm gonna move on to Irish.
That's why you're in film and you're writing. You don't have to speak anything.
Exactly.
No, but either way, this must have been extra special, right? Because you have your roots get traced back to Ireland, and so you could relate more ways than one. And you had lived in Ireland, and of course, the Blessed Virgin and the faith of Catholicism is really strong there, and you got to experience it. And what a special thing to be involved in this project, huh?
Oh, it was very profound. In Ireland in particular, and some of the family is from that general area of Father Peyton. And then just being for how Father Peyton's parents instilled the seeds of faith for him that allowed him to go on and have them sprout and grow and transcend time and space in so many ways, that the power of his parents. And so at the graveyard, where his parents were buried, and it's one of the scenes in the film is one of my favorites because of that coming back and celebrating and cherishing and acknowledging that what his parents did also changed the world.
Absolutely.
It allowed him to have those wings. It was, for me, thinking of my own mom and dad, such a powerful experience.
Megan Harrington, end us on this note. This company that you work for, that you work with, Family Theater Productions, why is it important to you to make these kind of films?
It's important for me for films that the family can watch together, and I think sometimes that's very difficult because there's that one moment or that, it would have been great if it wasn't that one scene. I want to pursue, produce, and be part of projects that are true, good, and beautiful, that can tackle tough issues, but that at the end of the day I can sit down, watch it with my nieces and nephews, watch it with my mom. My dad has passed away, watch it with my mom, and be proud that I was part of it. And that is so important right now, to engage with culture and to drive home messages that are good, that might be tough, but at the end of the day, they leave people better than we found them.
Fantastic. Megan, thank you for making entertainment wholesome, and I'm going to ask our audience to pray for the success of all of your projects. You've done great work. Keep it up, and we look forward to more projects in the future. You have a good week, Megan.
Thank you, Dr. Acquaviva, so much for your support.
You got it. Take care. Well, there you go, folks. Megan Harrington, she's a documentary writer and producer. Her latest project, or one of her latest projects, is Pray, the Story of Patrick Peyton. She also worked on Unplanned, The Dating Project, The House That Rob Built. All of her stuff is high quality, and as she mentioned, it's wholesome, good stuff that the whole family can watch. What's your feeling as you come out of that interview, brother?
I get a little tear in my eye. And John, knowing you now for 4 or 5 years, faith in sport and your passion for this show, the guests that you get on. I could listen to Megan here for
another hour.
Another hour.
Yeah.
And the stories and the heartfelt messages that pertain to our faith. It's just precious, and that's why I enjoy coming here once a month. But I enjoy the guests you have, and she was just awesome.
She's terrific, and this is. I say a lot of stuff on this show. I always try to be sincere, but the one thing I can be sincere about or as much as anything about, is how many people say yes to this show. As you like to point out almost every time you're on, we've had terrific guests, and to have a Hollywood producer basically come on that has done relatively big projects, and to say yes to this show not only once but twice, I'm very humbled. I'm very flattered. It's just terrific to have people on this show.
And when you listen to a show like this, you got a takeaway. My takeaway is I never heard of her. I'm going to go check her out. I'm going to go watch this movie and probably the rest of the movies, and of course Unplanned. I mean, it's like a little gift you give people through Faith and Sport. I just say she was excellent. She was the gift of the show.
No, I appreciate that, brother. Thank you. Listen, folks, switching gears, I want to let you know that this show is supported by Carolina Crawl Space Pros. Folks, do you know that the most expensive home improvement is? It's the one that you do twice. Make sure you hire a company like Carolina Crawl Space Pros that does it right the first time and stands behind their work. For website and contact info, as well as a special offer, go to my page on Carolina Catholic Radio. That's Carolina Crawl Space Pros. All right, brother. Listen, I think we got a couple minutes. You have a question for me. Let's shift to the quick Q&A with Dr. A. I'd like your opinion on this too, Ed, as we cruise through here.
Yes, the question is, you and Brett Favre, great minds think alike, huh?
That's right. Brett Favre, he sings the theme, one of the themes, Ed, of our show. And the title of this article is, Favre wants politics out of sports. Quote, as Favre said, I just want to watch the game. And he goes on to quote, he not only gives his insight, he gives quotes in the article about there are too many people that come up to him and say, Brett, man, I used to love watching football, but there's so many politics involved. I used to watch baseball and basketball, and there's all these things creeping into. It's not only in a discussion about the game, it's a discussion before the game, during the game. There's stuff on the court, in basketball, and there's stuff on the field. And he says it's driving him crazy, and he is literally at that point where, and remember, he just retired. He just went into the Hall of Fame, I think, last year. It's just been a few years since he retired. And I think in people like your and I's heart, it seems like just last year he was playing. But I think ultimately, just in the next year or two, maybe even right now, we're going to long for those seasons and years where politics was not part of it. And it wasn't all that long ago. I'm glad he said that. What are your thoughts on that?
Couldn't agree more. I mean, that's why I'm a sports fan. It is an escape, of course, but I don't want to hear about today's world's problems from people that think they're experts on this. You're an expert sports player. Play the game. Let's have fun with it. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt this industry. It's going to hurt the industry.
You think it's going to end up
if it hasn't already?
No, in fact, it has. The interesting thing is every time it seems to hurt them, they kind of come back with a vengeance as far as TV ratings and money's put into the sport. But I do agree with you. I think they're playing with fire, and they should just leave it be. And we'll leave that.
Good quote by Brett Favre.
Yeah, it was excellent. So let's move on to a segment that we tried to get to last week. It's the PGA Golfer of the Week. You guys ready? It's Christian Bezuidenhout. My favorite player now is Christian Bezuidenhout. And Ed has a look on his face of utter confusion because Ed knows that he tied for 33rd place in the RBC Heritage. But I'm going to say it again, and when I say it, you guys should know why he's my PGA Golfer of the Week. Christian Bezuidenhout. By the way, the runner-up was Luis Oosthuizen.
Oosthuizen. Now talk to us. Come on. Quit laughing. I want to know why this guy is your favorite.
You just heard why he's my favorite. His name is Christian Bezuidenhout. What else do you need to know? He's my favorite. Hey, listen, as Ed always likes to say, he likes to quote John Paul II, who said, give thanks to God for the gift of sport in which the human person exercises his body, intellect, and will, recognizing these abilities as so many gifts of his creator. Before we go, I want to say special thanks to you, Ed Billick.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Chris, for having me again.
And
Great
producer,
to have you.
Yeah, very good. And producer Megan Harrington for joining me on the show today. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. Please join us next time here on Carolina Catholic Radio and Radio Maria for more Faith and Sport.
Faith and Sport.
Also known as Dr. Acquaviva.
Rock on, baby, rock on.
You've been listening to another awesome edition of Faith and Sport today on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network on 1270 AM Charlotte, also streaming at carolinacatholicradio.org and on the Radio Maria Radio Network. We want to thank you for tuning in and invite you to tune again next week for more Faith and Sport here on Carolina Catholic Radio and Radio Maria.